So thanks a lot. There was a lot in there too. I'm sure that this will spark quite a few reactions as well. Alice, what is your perspective on this? What are the actions that are the ones that attracted most your attention? And also if, because you bring in a component that has not been discussed today, which is the marine component. So there is a plethora of organizations working in that field. How do you see the action plan working in that relationship?
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the Commission and the Committee of Regions for inviting my organizations at risk at the conference. So as you can imagine, and as Nicolas just said, I will be talking about the marine part of the Natura 2000 network. So it's pointed out in the action plan, the marine network is far from complete, much less than the terrestrial network. So substantial additional efforts are needed to increase both the number and also the size of marine Natura 2000 sites, as well as the coherence of the network. This is part of Action 4, and Action 4 is indeed the most relevant action for us. But increasing designation is not sufficient, and one of the main problems today is the lack of management measures, or conservation measures as referred to in the action plan. This gap makes marine protected areas mere paper parks rather than effective biodiversity conservation tools. At the moment, we actually have very little data on the number of sites that have management plans, and even less data on sites with effective management measures that actually deliver on the conservation objectives. In marine Natura 2000 sites, the first activity that needs to be regulated is fisheries. And the European Court of Justice has confirmed that fisheries is a plan or project as per Article 6 of the Habitats Directive. And as such, we believe that it needs to be much more strictly regulated in most marine Natura 2000 sites than it is at present. This doesn't mean that it should be systematically banned. That's not what we're saying. But its effects need to be systematically assessed through an appropriate assessment, and adequate measures need to be taken when significant impacts on the features protected are demonstrated, or when the integrity of the site is threatened. Such measures will not only protect biodiversity, of course it's their primary objective, but they can also benefit commercial fish species, even if these are not specifically protected by the directive, and thus also benefit the fishery sector. In the Mediterranean, some marine protected areas have even been put in place jointly with fishermen organizations in order to safeguard the fish stocks and to ensure the long-term viability of their trade. So, Action 4 of the action plan clearly states that countries need to adopt more conservation measures. This is true for inshore marine protected areas, meaning marine protected areas near the coast, but it's also true for marine protected areas that are located offshore. Countries are increasingly designating offshore marine protected areas, but unfortunately they're not yet effectively protecting them. However, since it was reformed, the common fisheries policy enables member states to work together in order to take fisheries management measures in marine protected areas to achieve the conservation objectives of these sites. So far, however, few member states have made use of that possibility, and those that have fallen short of the ambition of this process. Many of us in the NGO community working on these issues are quite concerned about the recent joint recommendations adopted by the member states to put in place fisheries measures in offshore marine protected areas. These are simply not sufficient to achieve the conservation objectives of the sites, and therefore they do not comply with the nature directives. So first, we call on these member states to put in place management measures that are adequate and sufficient to effectively protect the marine protected area. But we also think that the Commission, and here I mean both DG Environment and DG Mare, should take a stronger role in this process and fully play its role of guardian of EU legislation. This means not simply making sure that member states have correctly followed the procedure. It also means actually assessing the measures proposed by the member states and making sure that these measures are sufficient to achieve the conservation objectives of the site and fully comply with the nature directives. One important obstacle to the implementation of appropriate fisheries management measures is the lack of coordination between environmental and fisheries authorities. And the action plan discusses the need to get regional sea conventions, which are environmental conventions, and regional fisheries management organizations to work better together in developing conservation measures. This is definitely an honorable objective. However, we think that it would be much more relevant and effective to start by encouraging member states to better coordinate internally their environmental and fisheries authorities, as this is a major obstacle in many member states in the implementation of fisheries management measures in marine protected areas. Thank you very much.